Growing questions about how the mainstream media is covering President Trump's accusations that the Obama administration tapped his phones during the campaign. Watch how ABC's Martha Raddatz handled an interview on This Week with Deputy White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
All we're saying is let's take a closer look. Let's look into this. If this happened, if this is accurate, this is the biggest overreach and the biggest scandal.
The President of the United States is accusing the former president of wiretapping him.
I think that this is, again, something that if this happened, Martha,
if.
And take a look at these headlines. One from CNN reading, quote, Trump falsely accuses Obama of wiretapping him. And the cover of the New York Daily News over the weekend declaring Mr. Trump nuts and including a subheader that reads, the news says evidence-free charge is a mark of instability. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. Congressman, I'll start with you. I watched that interview with Martha Raddatz and Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Thought Sarah Huckabee really composed herself, was trying to explain the perspective of the White House. When I see Martha Raddatz, I just think of her crying on election night because Trump won.
Yeah, I can't necessarily get to the motive of everybody, but it is a very serious allegation. We're going to take it very seriously in Congress. Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, has been looking into Russia for more than a year. But now we'll expand that to look at what's going on with this allegation of wiretapping. There are a variety of different ways that could have happened, and it's going to take some time to do that, and he'll continue to lead out on it.
When you see some of these headlines, though, that are so over the top and so dramatic, it has to anger you. It angers me, and I, have not always been the biggest fan of President Trump.
Well, look, they're so duplicitous in the media. On the one hand, the Democrats they want it their way and only their way, and their heads are kind of exploding over this issue. But we're going to take it very seriously, and so they don't have much evidence to suggest that Russia was actually conspiring with the Trump campaign, and yet they write that out there as if it was a fact that everybody should just accept. But I don't see much of any evidence that ties together collusion. At the same time, we're skeptical of what Donald Trump has put out there as the president, making this allegation, but we're going to take it seriously and let the facts take us where they go. I don't know what we're going to find, but we're going to go look at it.
Harris, what did you make of those headlines?
Well, they just bring back kind of the basic question that I have had all along. Is this driven by the president's tweets and his early comments that seem to profess, and if you look as far back as like 2010, a liking for Russia and their leader, at least within the context of maybe a pageant or something like that, if you look at older tweets? Does it really revolve around that, or is there there in terms of who from the administration would have met with Russian officials? And I know you've got the Jeff Sessions situation. I'm just wondering what's driving the story. Can we just drill down to the facts? Because we really do have some big issues in the country. People elected this president to deal with those issues.
But this goes back to the point of how CNN, a major network in this country, can run a headline, Trump falsely accuses Obama of wiretapping him. As a journalist, it's not their job to come up with a definitive answer that he has falsely made these claims before they've even asked anybody questions.
No, I read a New York Times story that came out yesterday, I think it was, and the source was an American official. It was so broad, right? It wasn't Department of Justice, it wasn't the intelligence community, it was an American official. I mean, you can work at the Bureau of Indian Affairs, I guess, and qualify for that. And so these sources, what's disappointing to me is that when you read these articles and you see the sources, they're so anonymous. What happened to journalism where they actually got somebody on the record? That's something that's very frustrating.
But what happens if, let's say there is some form of collusion between Trump operatives and Russia? And, we don't know how serious that might or might not be. And also, what happens if President Obama really had ordered that wiretap somehow, nefariously, surreptitiously, who knows, in Trump Tower? What happens to the former president then?
Well, look, we're going to go into this with eyes wide open. My experience now, having been 8+ years on the Oversight Committee and 2+ years as the chairman, you don't know what's around the corner. So we're not going to prejudge this. We're not going to presuppose the conclusion. We'll let the facts take us where it takes us, and we'll see what happens. But the Obama administration's had some nefarious things in their past. The IRS targeted Americans based on their political beliefs.
James Rosen, one of our
James
Fox
Rosen
channel
type of issue. Fast and Furious. We had to hold we had to hold the Attorney General in contempt of Congress. And then look at my own case. I had more than 40 Secret Service agents illegally tap into my background in my records. A violation of federal law, and the Obama administration, the mainstream media, just paid no attention to that. So you have 40 Secret Service agents looking into the chairman of the Oversight Committee who's doing an investigation on the Secret Service, and
amazing.
Nothing happened to those people.
Yeah.
So, you know, is it possible that somebody overstepped the line and was peering into...
Maybe if more of those people were on the White House lawn, so many people wouldn't have breached it. But you also have, you know, the former president expanded the powers of surveillance and information sharing among agencies. Lame. All right, well, Attorney General Jeff Sessions expected to provide amended testimony in writing today regarding his contacts with Russia's ambassador during the presidential election. That may not be enough for the 9 Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee who are demanding Sessions appear again before the committee to clarify his answers. But the Republican chairman, Senator Chuck Grassley, saying that's not going to happen. All this as many on the left continue to push for an independent probe on Russia and possible collusion with the Trump campaign. But former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper says he's not aware of any evidence of a connection. Watch.
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand that, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
If it existed, it would have been in this report.
This could have unfolded or become available in the time since I left the government.
Now, meantime, the leader of the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, now calling for an immediate investigation by the Department of Justice's Inspector General into whether there has been any political interference with the investigations into Trump's ties to Russia and his campaign's ties. So where do we go from here? At what point does the Attorney General, who's now recused himself, but the Department of Justice, call for an independent investigator?
Well, with no evidence of collusion, there's no need for a special prosecutor. That is ridiculous. And for the Democrats to suddenly have this newfound commitment to openness, transparency, and principle, I mean, what changed?
And
the president changed. Yeah, I just don't see any direct evidence of that. There's some incidental context, but there were with the Democrats as well. So I just don't see.
But that doesn't mean this is going to go away. Will Democrats keep pushing this?
Oh, of course they're going to keep pushing this. And look, the Attorney General is going to come to Capitol Hill multiple times to testify, but submitting in writing a clarification is far more than they need to do at this point. We need to get on with the business of the country.
Yeah. So if you thought that having a special prosecutor look at this would make it go away because there's no there, would you agree?
No, I don't think there's need for it. People say, well, let's rely on the statute.
Just to move on.
There is no special prosecutor statute that's even there. They would be appointed by the Attorney General himself. Look, Congress is going to look at it. The Intel Committee has those resources to lead out on it, and I think that's the right avenue to do it. That'll happen in the Senate and in the House.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because you've mentioned him a couple of times, the chair of the House, Intel, Nunes. They were on the Hill simultaneously during and held a news conference during Outnumbered last week. And Adam Schiff on the other side of the political aisle, also a representative from California, they came out of the same Intel meeting. Nunes said there is no evidence. Schiff said we can't talk about it. What? Is there evidence or no evidence? If there's no evidence, move on.
Look, if they had the evidence, the Democrats, I'm sure, would dump it out there for all to see. But here we are, you know, turning the corner into the end of the first week of March.
Yeah.
And they don't have anything there. And if there's something, call our office, give it to us.
Okay, but that is a question for you, Megan, because how do you get over this hyper-politicized environment for people who just want the truth? People just want to figure out what's going on, and they don't necessarily want to have to pick a side in this political football game. How do you do that?
I mean, if we've learned nothing over the last year and a half, there's a complete and utter distrust of all our government agencies and our politicians. I think we can all collectively agree on that. What I need Democrats to do...
You trust me, don't you?
I trust you. There are some people I trust. Of course I trust you. But collectively, this looks politicized. And what I need Democrats to do in regards to Jeff Sessions is, clearly you're implying that he's some kind of Russian mole between the Trump campaign and Vladimir Putin. So come out and say it, because if you want to dance, you got to go out and you got to accuse them big time. But, you know, wasting everyone's time saying special committees when you're here saying there's absolutely no need or precedence for it one way or another. If you're going to do this, then you got to pull the plug and actually accuse Jeff Sessions of doing what you're implying. But you won't, because it's probably irrational.
Well, and that makes the story go away for the Democrats. And I mean, that's what we're talking about. They don't want this to go away necessarily, because politically for them, it's distracting.
But that's what they're implying all over television. And it's just, again...
No, they're absolutely right. They're trying to gin up enough hysteria and distraction for a political win, and that remains to be seen. However,